All right, we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a Monday afternoon edition of the Brew Party Podcast, episode number 36. We're here bringing you everything college football today with a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, the host from 100 Yards of Football Talk Sports Radio. Let me try that again. The host, 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio.
There you go.
Logan Landers joins the Brew Party Podcast. Logan, thank you so much for joining me on this fine Monday morning. How you doing? Or Monday afternoon?
Yeah, something like that. I'm doing good, Andy. Happy to join the party and ready to talk some football with you, bro.
Absolutely. Logan Landers joins the party, ladies and gentlemen. So tell me a little bit more about 100 Yards of Football, kind of what that is, how you got involved.
Yeah, man. So I've been working there since January. We are based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We do around 7 to 10 shows per week. We typically film on Mondays or Wednesdays, just kind of depends. We have an amazing lineup. We have our main guy, the host who started everything, Mr. Football Vincent Turner, the encyclopedia of sports, we like to call him. Got me here, who's the kind of the digital guru, who I kind of post everything on socials and stuff like that. Our amazing producer, Jeremiah, who you met the other week when you were on the show. He sets up all the StreamYards and all the how we live stream, stuff like that. We got great host as well. We got high school coach Kevin Jones. We got former NFL player Bobby Butler, who played with the Atlanta Falcons in Florida State back in the 80s and 90s. So he's on our squad as well. We got a little bit of basketball with Coach Spencer, who's out of Carver Bible College here in Atlanta as well. And so we just do a little bit of everything. We talk a little bit of baseball as well, whenever that's in season. Mostly football, college, and NFL is what we stick to. But yeah, we do some great shows. We do team previews. We did an NBA draft video earlier today. We also do like I said, team profiles, player profiles, anything like that, draft coverage, game previews also. So we do a little bit of everything over there. So we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter as well. We don't use it too much. We're mostly prevalent on Facebook, Instagram. Also, we're on Twitch a little bit as well. We're trying to get that started. So yeah, also on YouTube and our podcast as well, which is just the audio versions of our videos. We're on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. We are over there just chilling out. And if you guys want to go watch us, let us know that, you found us from here, and we'll be happy to see you.
Absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough for having me on your show a couple of weeks ago for that awesome player preview we did about Jalen Johnson from the Bears, and I'm so happy you could join me for mine. Yeah, so you're from Atlanta. I do like to highlight on this show, specific fan bases or have people on from different fan bases. So do you have any specific teams you root for? I know you're down in Atlanta. Is that are you a Dogs or a Tech? Or
I'm actually pretty neutral when it comes to college football. I kind of got into college a little bit later in my sports kind of fandom. Growing up, I didn't watch it too much. I was mostly I'm still a diehard Braves fan, as you can see the tomahawk in the background over there somewhere. Yeah, and so yeah, I'm mostly a Braves fan from Atlanta. But in terms of college, I don't really have a team to root for. I'm not invested into the Dogs or to Georgia Tech. I do watch them play, but I don't ever get fully invested. But in terms of football, like the NFL, I do like the Falcons. The Raiders are also my team. So those are my two teams I always kind of go to war with. But in terms of college, no, pretty neutral. Basketball, I like the Hawks and the Lakers. So those are my two squads. And still trying to get into soccer, but at least with the Atlanta United being, pretty decent, I got someone to root for with them.
Absolutely. The Atlanta United's the best team that plays at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
I'm just kidding. So two of my former roommates, Chris and Tate, are originally from Savannah. But they moved up here to Illinois, so they're diehard Braves, Falcons, Hawks, but they are big Georgia Dogs fans themselves. But yeah, so that's good to hear. I'm sure they'll love to hear that. So let's move on to what I brought you here for. Let's do some college football talk real quick. We'll start off with the top 25. So if we look at the top 25 right now, Alabama still number 1, Notre Dame at number 2, Ohio State 3, Clemson 4, Texas A&M 5, Florida 6, Cincinnati 7, BYU 8, Indiana 9, and Wisconsin at 10. I feel like 10 is enough. We don't really need to go through the whole list there. Let's start with overrated and underrated. Any teams, this doesn't have to be from the 10 I just listed, or it could be through the whole top 25 that you think are overrated.
Overrated. Man, I would just say, I'm not saying that they're a bad team or anything. I'm just basing this off of they haven't played enough games. I'm going to go with Ohio State. Well, yeah, they are 3-0. That's fine. And they are stuck at number 3 right now. Like I said, with this season, it's always hard to tell just because, look, they had to start a lot later than everyone else, but they have looked impressive. I'm just going to go over it just based off the fact of their record alone at the moment. They've had a lot more time to rest before they had to start. So we'll have to see how that pans out for them. But in terms of underrated, that's a pretty good question. I feel like I could say Florida just based off the fact that they're finally starting to get a little bit more national recognition now. But I've watched a good bit of Florida this season, and they are looking very good. I've been impressed with the way Kyle Trask has been playing as well as that entire Gators ball club. So I think they're slightly underrated now, but they're starting to get more and more into that talk of they could potentially get into the playoff picture.
Absolutely. I like that. I like that for sure. I like that Ohio State pick. For my overrated, I think I'm going to go Wisconsin. And I know that they have absolutely smashed both teams they've played, but I'm an Illinois fan. Look at the defense they're going up against Illinois. It was an absolute joke. They were able to shred them. And then really, how good is this Michigan team that almost seems to have quit on Harbaugh? I'm going to ask you about your thoughts on that a little bit later. Underrated, I really like BYU and Cincinnati, actually, out of the G5. Okay. I think they could make some noise. But I really like your Florida pick as well because their offense can beat absolutely anybody, I believe. And then let's move on. Obviously, the big story from last week was the number of canceled and postponed games across college football. That included 6 games in the top 25. Do you see this being an issue going forward, something we can expect the rest of the season?
Honestly, I'm surprised that this many games haven't been canceled prior to last week. I know on my show we talked probably about 4 of the 6 games that got canceled, so that was great in terms of the numbers we got off of that. But no, I do still see it being an issue. Obviously, I mean we see mostly it seems like NFL's kind of gotten under control with all the COVID cases, but college is still having issues with it. I don't know. I can't speak on this because I don't know what they're doing. But there's always going to be a few guys that go down, whether it's a star offensive player like we saw with Trevor Lawrence, or if it's half of a team. I do still see this being an issue, obviously, because I mean, who knows when this virus is going to go away, and who knows how it's going to keep affecting teams. But yeah, I do still. I don't know if we're going to get as many games getting canceled as we saw last week, but I do still see there being about 1 or 2 games being canceled each week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a pretty fair assessment of that because you never know. And especially with these college campuses and these college programs and just the sheer number of kids they have there, it's going to be really hard for them not to at least contract, a couple cases of it. As awful as that is, you don't want anybody to have it. But at a certain point, some of these cases almost seem unavoidable, I guess. So you're obviously in Atlanta, the heart of SEC country. That was what kind of where I don't want to say outbreak, but there are like half the conference's games, 4 total SEC games canceled last week. And do you think this is something that the teams in the SEC specifically have to worry about going forward? And what do you think the impact it will have on your CFP contenders like Bama, Florida, Texas A&M?
I'll just say this. The South is a little bit more relaxed when it comes to the COVID restrictions and stuff like that. So they are going to get a lot more cases than they are, saying up north and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So just because, I mean, this thing about you see SEC games now, they're getting it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's still fans in the stadium at 25%, maybe even 50% capacity. And I mean, yeah, that's fun and all because it's a nice visual when you watch it on TV.
Right.
But you got to think about just the health and everything. And while, yeah, I mean, some people don't think this is as serious as it is still a health risk regardless of the fact. I mean, you see, like we saw the other week with all those games going down, it's pretty crazy. And I mean, I do think it's going to keep affecting the SEC primarily as opposed to any of the other conferences. The ACC as well, just because a good bit of the teams are based down here as well, like Georgia Tech and Florida State and all those guys. So, well, yeah, I do see this still kind of rearing its ugly head. Hopefully they can figure out something to kind of combat this. I know it's hard to do kind of a quarantine. They've tried their best doing an all-conference schedule, like, the SEC's playing all SEC teams. And we thought, okay, that could cure it, but we're seeing that it's not. So while I do see it, I do see it affecting teams like I said, Alabama, Florida, A&M, Georgia, and all those. Because, I mean, we saw that Nick Saban potentially could have been ruled out a few weeks ago as the head coach. We see, Trevor Lawrence got knocked out against that game against Notre Dame. We saw how that turned out. Georgia as well. I mean, they haven't had too many cases, I don't believe, but they're always still at risk playing against these teams who are contracting it left and right.
Right. I mean, the SEC is not the only conference that's been affected by this. Let's not act like that's it. I mean, you said the ACC, Trevor Lawrence has missed a couple games. The Big Ten is Ohio State had their first game or a third game of the season that would have been their third game of the season canceled this weekend against Maryland. Their kind of strength of schedule has already kind of came into question a little bit, especially if you look at the other side of the conference, who they would have to match up with in the Big Ten championship game. Do you think COVID or this hurts their resume for the college football playoff at all, Ohio State?
I feel like if Ohio State can keep winning, and I mean they do like a very solid ball club right now, only a few games into the season. So that's the big question. That's kind of on my mind is like you see, the Alabamas of the world who are already at like 8-0 or whatever, and then you see Ohio State who's at 3-0, so they're 5 games behind that record. So is Ohio State going to play as many games, or are they just going to be like, okay, Alabama's been done for 3 weeks now, and Ohio State's still going? Or I don't know how that's going to work because I don't feel like that's fair to one side of the team. Because look at this. So Alabama's been playing a few weeks longer than Ohio State. I'm just going to say Alabama just because. So if Ohio State was able to get a few weeks off because Alabama's been playing, does that mean to make it up, is Alabama going to get a few weeks off at the end so Ohio State can finish up?
I don't know. I have
That's
no idea.
Tough one.
Well, and I'm also curious because the Ohio State-Maryland game was canceled, but the 4 SEC games are postponed.
Yeah.
The Big Ten, with waiting so long, they didn't build in any time to make up these games, so these teams are just kind of shit out of luck, which is unfortunate because you want to see teams play a full schedule, and then like you look at the Pac-12, I think they're going to play 7 games. Like, is there any way you see a Pac-12 team like Oregon would be the only option really, and they're at number 11 right now?
You see, I just don't think that's fair to the other teams who've had to play more games. I mean, I get what all these conferences are trying to do, trying to just keep it as safe as possible, canceling games, postponing games, or whatever. But, I mean, do you really say if Oregon does somehow make it into the top 4, are you going to look at them as a more credible team than, say, an Alabama or like a Clemson of some sort who's played a lot more games? I just don't see that.
Yeah, I don't either, and I don't think the CFP will see that as well. Let's talk about some of the games that actually happened this last week. I want to start with Notre Dame. So they, off that big upset win over Clemson, they go to Boston College, and they get a 45-31 win. Kind of controlled it the whole time. I know BC had it closed for a little bit, but in the second half, Notre Dame really just kind of asserted their dominance and were taking whatever they wanted. Are they a legit title contender? Do you think this win, this 2 in a row, proved it? Obviously, the win over Clemson was huge. You talk Clemson doesn't have Trevor Lawrence, but then a classic letdown game. Notre Dame fans will know what I'm talking about. You want to call it a trap game almost. You're so high off that win to Clemson, you kind of forget about BC a little bit. They didn't seem to miss a beat. They still winning by 2 scores. Do you think this proves that they're pretty legit?
Notre Dame's kind of an interesting case, just based off the fact that they're technically an independent still. While, yes, they are playing an all ACC schedule, that wasn't how they were coming into this season. They're the only kind of high-profile team to be kind of in their own kind of class, which is pretty crazy, honestly. Because I know just going into the season, I'm like, well, God, what is Notre Dame going to do? Because they don't even have really a conference. So, yeah, while they did get the ACC schedule, I mean, that does make sense. They're 8-0 on the year, and they, like I said, they got that 2-score win against Boston College, who's Boston College has been playing very good. I'm not going to knock on them. They played good against Clemson the week before. They did very good. And they had a pretty solid game here against Notre Dame. I mean, that's going to be just, it was expected for the Irish to win this game. Ian Book is looking very good. He's starting to open my eyes a little bit on the season. He's looking very solid. I like their team. It's pretty complete, honestly. There's not a real missing piece, honestly. The big thing with me is that defense is kind of, like Grant says here, you would like the Notre Dame defense to play better. Of course, yeah. But the thing, Grant, is that that's the way defenses have been this whole season, whether it's college or NFL. Those defenses are still trying to get figured out. I know, there were 9 weeks into the season, 10 weeks or whatever, but it's hard whenever they weren't able to get those few weeks off or those few weeks that early head start with like OTAs and whatnot. You see defenses in both college and the NFL just struggling, giving up all these points. And that's just, you have to get a lot of reps on defense and get all your coverages and stuff adjusted. And that's just how it's been this season for everybody. But overall, yeah, I mean, the defense just against that Boston College game, I did like how Sean Crawford performed. He had a sack and 9 total tackles, so he was kind of the anchor on that defensive side of the ball. In terms of a title contender, I'm going to still need them to keep winning a few more games. They are opening my eyes, and yes, they are the number 2 overall team in the country. And I do think they are a very solid team. I do think that they could get to the finals of the college football playoff. I'm looking at their schedule here, and they have a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. They're playing UNC, who is ranked, I believe, up at 6th highest this year. So that'll be the toughest game they got to keep right now. Then they're going up against Syracuse and Wake Forest. So I do think they can win out. They can win those last 3 games. And I do think they're going to make the playoffs for sure. They're not going to drop out.
Sure. So do you think they win out and then they probably have to face Clemson again in the ACC championships? Let's say they win out and then lose to Clemson. Does that knock them out, or does that put 2 ACC teams in?
Oh man, the college football committee is going to be wanting to get as many SEC teams in as much as possible, and Texas A&M's knocking on that door. So I do think that I do like your scenario of Notre Dame's going to play Clemson for the ACC championship. But this time, it looks like Clemson's going to have a healthy Trevor Lawrence on the team, which is the big difference. And I do think that Clemson will win that game whenever it does happen. And that probably will knock out Notre Dame off of that one loss, because we've seen as many years as the college football players been going on. You can take one loss and still get in, but if it's a demoralizing loss like in the ACC championship, like we were talking about, that one loss might be enough to knock you out for good and have someone else with just one loss, like an A&M or somebody, be able to slide in.
Yeah, that's my question. If A&M doesn't make the SEC championship game, but they win out, and Notre Dame loses in the ACC championship game, I guess that depends, because can Florida take out Alabama as well? So there's a lot of things there, but would you say more likely to happen 2 SEC teams then instead of 2 ACC?
Yeah, I do see that. I do see 2 SEC teams getting in, just based off that fact of, let's just face it, the college football committee is primarily going towards, they want as many SEC teams in, because that's that's the big money maker. And let's see, Nicholas says Irish have only played 1 ranked team, and Clemson even had their quarterback. Yeah, that's what I'm saying with that. With the independent label around them, and most overrated program. Ooh, okay, throwing some wood on the fire.
Shots there, Nick Baby, former guest of the Brew Party podcast.
Bringing the heat today.
Yeah, bringing the heat. Notre Dame, most overrated program since 2000. Thanks for checking in, Nick. I'm curious. I see the scenario really. If Notre Dame loses, I can still see them getting in.
Okay.
I wouldn't hate that. I mean, we'll get to that later. No. We'll get to that later when we pick our 4. Let's talk about a couple more of the games. So number 10, Indiana continues to impress. They shut out Michigan State 24-0. Their game next week, going to Ohio State so number 9 at number 3 Ohio State. Does Indiana have any chance in this game?
I think so. They've been on a heck of a wave of momentum this whole season. Honestly, I don't think anyone's expected them to perform this well. I mean, they're undefeated. So, they've only played 4 games, but they've looked really good in those 4 games. They shut out Michigan State, who is kind of a lower tier Big Ten team at the moment. But let's face it, they were able to knock off Michigan a few weeks ago. So that is a pretty good win for them. Looking at the Hoosiers right now, man, they got a pretty solid team. I like Michael Penix Jr. He's looked very good in that game, like you said, against Michigan State. He did throw 2 picks, but he had 2 touchdowns as well, so he was able to even it up. On the offensive side of the ball, man, you got to talk about that amazing wide receiver whose last name I'm going to try and get, Ty Fogel, something along the lines of that, man.
Close enough.
We'll go with that. 11 catches for 200 yards and those 2 touchdowns on the day. So that if Ohio State wants to contain Indiana this next week, they got to shut him down because he is just on top of the world right now after that amazing performance. And I mean, the Indiana defense has got to be feeling good too. They just shut out. It's always good to get a shutout. Don't matter who you're playing. So they got a lot of momentum. They're going to be extra fired up to be playing the number 3 ranked team in the country. So I'm going to keep a close eye on this game. If I had to pick a winner, I'd go with Ohio State just by a nudge. It wouldn't be much at all. I would say maybe 1 score, possibly 2, but I don't see it being any more than that.
Yeah, so Indiana's been kind of building. This is the fruits of Tom Allen's labor here. Yep. So, and they've been close to beating Ohio State a couple years now. Is this year they finally clip them? So you have to think it's a lot easier in the Horseshoe with no fans. Well, reduced capacity,
right?
I should say. But yeah, the Hoosiers are definitely impressive. This is the first time since like 1984 or something like that that they've beaten Penn State and Michigan in the same season. So I'm definitely curious to see the trajectory of Indiana. How many losses did they have at the end of the year? Do we see Wisconsin? Do we see Indiana facing off against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game? Going down to the ACC, number 9 Miami narrowly escapes Virginia Tech with a win, 25-24. De'Ara King has had a very awesome season, the grad transfer from Houston. He is actually kind of in the Heisman conversation, the lower tier of the Heisman conversation. But what are your thoughts on the Hurricanes this season and then specifically in this game?
The Hurricanes have been fairly impressive this season. This is for sure their best year in a long time. Currently they're sitting at number 12 at the moment. Only have that 1 loss to Clemson, of course, a couple weeks ago. They lost 42-17. But other than that, they've been pretty dominant except for 2 wins. The closest games they had were against Virginia Tech this past week where they won by 1. And then I'm looking like here, there's a game against UVA a few weeks ago. They won by 5. But I'm looking at the rest of their schedule here, and they're facing Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and then UNC. Those are 3 easily winnable games for the Hurricanes as well. They've been playing this season. And, I mean, you brought it up. They've been very solid. Their quarterback play has been outstanding. And I know they've been looking for a solid quarterback for a while now. So they're glad that De'Ara King's finally stepped up. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards this season. And he's also, he's doing pretty good as well. He's got 17 touchdowns so far on the year. And I think he's only going to improve on that. So I do see them. The Hurricanes have been very solid, and I do see them winning out. But the real question is, can they potentially move into that college football playoff? That remains to be seen because that 1 loss, like I just said earlier, that might have, been the kind of kink in their armor that might, have them watching from the outside in.
Right. We would probably have to see Clemson lose in the ACC championship game or North Carolina clip Notre Dame at the end of the year or something like that. Something crazy would kind of have to happen in the SEC. I do think the Hurricanes are a good team. But I don't know. I wouldn't put them up in the same tier. I mean, you just said it, 42-17 against Clemson, and you see Notre Dame is able to beat Clemson, albeit the Hurricanes are facing Trevor Lawrence. But let's not act like DJ Uiagalelei was bad. He threw for almost 400 yards in that game, I believe. Let's move on. You were talking about Florida earlier. Is Kyle Trask the best quarterback in the SEC? We just saw them put the fucking hammer down on Arkansas this week, 63 points, and he did it without his number 1 target, Kyle Pitts.
And Kyle Trask has had an amazing season so far. In terms of SEC quarterbacks, it's just kind of him and Mac Jones, I believe, are the 2 kind of at the top of the SEC echelon in terms of the best QBs right now. But, man, just looking at how he's been able to perform this season, man, Kyle Trask has been on fire. 28 touchdowns and only 3 picks in the SEC, which is, one of the best football conferences in college. He is definitely in my Heisman contenders. And, him and Mac Jones are going to be compared this season. It's like, all right, you got 1 here, you got 1A and 1B. That's how I'm looking at it. Because we've seen what Alabama can do with quarterbacks. They're solid in college. Onto the pros, not the best, except for, with Tua's doing very well. And there's been a few others in the past, but for a while you saw that, they would get drafted. And it's like, all right, well, Alabama's got good QBs in college, but what are they doing in the NFL? But that's starting to kind of change now that you're seeing with Tua, how he's done with the Dolphins. He's won all of his starts so far. And now with Mac Jones, he's got a lot of hype around him. He's looked very, very good this year. He looked solid last year as well. But I do have Kyle Trask at the moment edging him out.
Absolutely. I like everything you just said there. I don't really even need to add anything, but yeah, that's in like 6 games, like 28 touchdowns and 3 picks. Absolutely insane. Kyle Trask, actually De'Aaron King's backup in high school in Manville, Texas, which is crazy. One of the better stories in college football so far. I'm going to jump back to the Big Ten real quick. I want to talk about this Wisconsin versus Michigan game. Then we're going to do some picks for Week 12, our Heisman picks, college football picks, and our college football playoff picks, and close us out. So number 13, Wisconsin, they're now number 10. 49, Michigan 11. So obviously they have that big COVID layoff. This is the Badgers' only second game of the season. Do you attribute this ass kicking to Michigan or to Wisconsin being that good, or Michigan just being that bad?
Like I said, they've only played 2 games this season, so I can't really judge if they're a good team or not. I'm going to chalk this one up to Michigan just being a bad team this year. Jim Harbaugh, it's not looking too hot for him. He's looking at the end of his leash there. They've just not been good. Let's just face it. They've underperformed while he's been there. And quite frankly, I think it's time for him to go get a change of scenery. Sometimes that's good for a team, though. We see some teams get rid of their head coach and they can perform like they look like a whole different team the next week. But if they do, let's just say they do fire him. If they do fire Harbaugh, let's just say if they lose this next week or whatever, or if they get him at the end of the season, how is Michigan going to rebound this next season? Because this one's already over. You can go ahead and chalk this one up. It's done with. They're just playing for pride now. But Wisconsin has looked very solid, though, in these 2 games. I will give them that. They look very good. Just for me, it's a little bit too early to tell if they're an actual contender or not. Right. So that's why I'm going to say the reason they got this win was because Michigan's just not a good ball club. Their defense has not been good at all, and their offense ain't been much better. The Wolverines just got a lot of issues, and I think it's time for Harbaugh to hit the bricks.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I think he should go back to the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think he was a better NFL coach, but you never know. It just never really worked out, and it's not like he never had bad teams. This is probably one of the worst teams he's had at Michigan. I think he could never beat Ohio State, could never beat the rivals or win the big one. Obviously, that JT Barrett year, they were inches away from probably the college football playoff, which sucks. But at the end of the day, if you have fans like Michigan fans that believe that they are the best of the best, the top tier national title contenders every year, they're going to start to get a little bit antsy. So yeah, I like what you said. Are there any specific games, storylines, coaches, anything you wanted to talk about before we move on from last week?
Yeah, I'm just happy to see football back, honestly. Right. That's the best thing. But coming out of, going into this week 12 for, the majority of teams, there's a few games that are going to be pretty, on my radar. The first one being the Indiana-Ohio State game. That's top of my list right now. That's going to be very solid. I'm going to be that's at noon Eastern, so I'm going to be checking that one out. I'm looking around here at the schedules, and there's also a game with Wisconsin. I'm going to see if they're going to be able to be contenders. They're playing 19-ranked Northwestern, so that'll kind of give me another feeder on if they're actually going to be how good they'll look. If they can beat a top-ranked team like Northwestern, who is 4-0 on the season, then it'll give me a little bit more of a cushion to be like, all right, Wisconsin is looking pretty good so far, but can they keep it rolling? Some other games I'm looking at. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. It's always a good rivalry game, so that's always going to be fun to watch. Both those teams are not going to make the playoffs, but it's just a fun game to watch. 2 ranked teams who are ranked 14 and 18, so that's going to be a nice one. And then other than that, there's not too much. There's Texas A&M and Ole Miss. I think that's going to be a shootout, so I'm going to be watching that one for the offense alone.
Absolutely. It seems like Ole Miss will score 100 points, but they will also let their opponent score about 99. So, yeah, they don't really play a lot of defense. So I have a few games written down that I'm going to have us just pick real quick. You've already given a pick for Indiana, Ohio State. You picked Ohio State there.
Yep.
You just said it, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Who are you taking there?
Man, I'm going to go with the Sooners in this one. Oklahoma's a weird team, man. They can look great one side of the ball, and then the next half they come out and look like a JV team. They're a hit and miss kind of team, but I see them getting the win against the Cowboys.
All right. This one's easy, but number one, Alabama versus Kentucky. I know Kentucky's had an okay season this year, but it's Bama.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Bama. It's going to be a steamroller. They're going to come in there to Kentucky, who hasn't had a horrible season. It's just Kentucky's in the SEC. That's the main issue. Yeah. A lot of these like kind of lower tier teams, like we say, they would be probably great in other conferences, but that's just how it is with Kentucky. They don't really stand much of a chance against Alabama. Alabama by 30.
Bold prediction, Alabama by 30. Hammer
down.
Hammer whatever the spread is. So number 7, Cincinnati versus UCF. This is always a really fun matchup in the American. Cincinnati's having their best year in who knows how long. Who you taking here? The Bearcats to continue their undefeated season or UCF?
I'm going to go with the Bearcats. I want to see them keep winning. I want to see how close they can get to the college football playoff and if they can actually sneak in somehow. So I'll go with the Bearcats to beat the unranked national champions of 2017 or 18.
I like that. And then the last one, another game you already mentioned, number 10 Wisconsin at number 19 Northwestern.
Yeah, Northwestern with the win, or not Northwestern. What about Wisconsin going with the win in that one? Lock it in. I got to win them by a few.
All right. I love that. So let's move on to our Heisman favorites. So I'm going to start with you. You can give me 3. You can give me 2, however many. Who are you looking at for this year's Heisman?
Oh, man. You always just got to go with quarterbacks, don't you? That seems like it's always the number one option. So first off, right now I got Kyle Trask at the moment. Okay. He's looked very solid. I got Kyle Trask number 1. I would say Justin Fields, but it is too early. I do love the way he plays. It's a shame that Georgia gave him up for free, basically. Now you see where they're at now with Stetson Bennett. So let's see. I got Kyle Trask. I'll go Mac Jones number 2. That's what I got. Right. And man, this is a tough one for me. I might go a little bit bold here and pick another. I'll pick someone other than a quarterback. I'll go with that. Okay. I'll go Travis Etienne.
Good call. So your 3, Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, and Travis Etienne. I like throwing a running back in there.
Yeah, so mix it up a little bit.
Absolutely. So I also have Trask. I have Trask number 1. I have Jones number 2. But I like Zach Wilson from BYU. Yeah. He is throwing the ball all over the yard this season. BYU is really fun to watch. So I'm going to throw him in there. I know it's a G5 guy, so not the best chances, but I always like to see when those smaller school guys. I actually have the Heisman Trophy betting odds right now from OddsShark. Justin Fields is currently the favorite at plus 125, which I don't really
It's a little too early for that, yeah.
Mac Jones at plus 150, Trevor Lawrence at plus 450, Trask at plus 600, Wilson's plus 2,200, and then your guy, Travis Etienne, is at plus 10,000.
Shot in the dark, but I know Etienne's not going to win it because, it's running backs you guys have an amazing year. But look, he's no slouch, though. I'm throwing him in there just because to get rid of the quarterback stigma. This guy is the all-time leading, I think it was ACC rusher of all time.
Right,
so you got to at least mention his name in there. If he's not going to win it, at least brush by his name and be like, all right, this dude's been – if it wasn't for Trevor Lawrence being the star of the show at Clemson, everyone would look at Etienne in a different light.
Absolutely. That's very true. But I just don't understand why Fields is number 1 if he's played two games, right? And then Trevor Lawrence has missed a couple.
Right.
Still the third favorite there, but how do you have – I think Trask at plus 600 is incredible value if you're talking about a guy that's thrown 28 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
Right.
Come on. All right, let's move on to the college football playoff. This is the year that's been it's been crazy. It's been, you never know what's going to happen. Will this be the craziest year of the college football playoff yet? Or do you think we see more of the same, just more of those powerhouses getting in?
Man, I do see the top 3 being powerhouses. That's pretty much a lock in. But the 4th spot is up for grabs. That's how it always is going to be. Right now, it's belonging to Clemson, and they could get it. Or let's say if Notre Dame takes a loss, they could. It just depends. I don't see Alabama losing, and Ohio State they could just because they haven't played as many games. So potentially there's 1 or 2 spots that could be slid in there. And if I had to pick two, I'll go with 3 that could potentially get in. I mean, there's A&M right now, there's Florida, and then there's Cincinnati who are sitting there. But let's not, Indiana right now, they're 9. And Wisconsin's 10. So if they keep winning out, who knows where this could go? So if you're the top of the pack, you got to keep winning out. You can't afford a loss, or else it's going to jeopardize your whole season, I think. But if I had to pick my top 4 or the 4 I think are going to go in this college football playoff in 2020, I got Alabama. They're gonna stay in. I don't see them taking a loss. I'll keep Notre Dame in there. I'll keep them in there. Still a little bit skeptical on that, just based off the fact that if they do get in there, I don't know how they're going to perform against the other teams. Just because, yes, like we said, they did beat Clemson, but they beat Clemson without their, the number 1 overall draft pick this next draft. So there's a little kind of an asterisk around that one. Ohio State, it remains to be seen. They still have a lot more games left to play, so we'll see. And then Clemson, they've shown that they're vulnerable. They took a loss. But we've seen over the years that they can, they've won, 29 straight games or something insane like that. So if I had to pick one team that I think would get kind of knocked out, I'd go with Ohio State, just based off the fact that I haven't seen them play enough. They only played 2 or 3 games. And if I had to pick someone to slide in, I'll go with Florida jumping A&M just because I've seen this Florida team play, and I want Kyle Trask in the playoffs doing his thing.
Absolutely. I like that pick for sure. I will get to mine real quick. I want to talk about the non-Power 5 teams.
Yeah, let's do it.
This has kind of been the year of the non-Power 5, with these conferences starting late. We had the smaller schools starting early, getting these primetime spots, and really impressing. You talk about number 7, Cincinnati, number 8, BYU, number 15, Coastal Carolina, out of the Fun Belt. They've been awesome to watch with all the mullets and all of that stuff. Is this the year we see a G5 team get into the college football playoff?
If it is, it's going to be either Cincy or BYU. Coastal, I love Coastal. I've been to their campus a few times out in South Carolina. Beautiful, beautiful campus and everything. But I don't see them keeping – they're a little bit too high ranked or too low ranked to get in kind of this late into the season. So if I do think Cincy or BYU will get in, but they got to account for, A&M losing, or they got to account for Ohio State or or Florida or someone along the lines of that. And it's hard when you got these top-ranked teams with some of the best recruits across the entire country, and you're, a smaller school like you are with Cincy or especially BYU.
Right.
So if it does happen, I got one of those two getting in. If I had to pick one of those, I'll go with Cincy. I'll go with Cincinnati. Do I think they'll get in? No. I got Cincy. If I had to pick how high they would get, I'd go 5 or 6. I think they'll be on the outside looking in, but still a great season as long as they keep up the wins. I've enjoyed seeing a couple of different teams though. That's always been great. Seeing these kind of lower ranked schools kind of get higher up, and you can kind of notice some of the talent because let's face it, we've seen, some of the best quarterbacks, best players in the NFL. They might not be from a high ranked school like Alabama or a Georgia or Florida, et cetera. They might be from some of these smaller schools, and you could be looking at a diamond in the rough, like you said, with Morris out of BYU. This is someone who, coming into the season, I'm sure no one outside of the BYU fan base has even heard of. But now that they're ranked number 7 in the country, number 8, they can you get kind of a better feeler on him and be like, all right, this guy is actually playing very solid. Well, yeah, it's not up against some of the best schools in the country. There is a lot of talent there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, not against, you said it lower talent for sure, but when you're putting up those numbers and scoring the way BYU is, I don't care who you're playing. It's fun to watch. Yeah, I wouldn't mind to see Zach Wilson in a Bears jersey next year. Actually. But yeah, I love that. Cincy, I think, has the best chance over BYU. Interesting. If everything holds in the American, they'll most likely play Tulsa, I believe, in the American Championship game. And Tulsa is up to number 25 in the poll. I don't know how much weight that will be like, but that will look better for the Bearcats if they can say, hey, our conference championship game was against another ranked team. So you gave your Final Four. I'm going to give mine. It's pretty similar. I think you put Alabama there. I like Notre Dame to go. I think Ohio State gets there because I don't see Ohio State losing. And then I want to say Clemson, but I don't know. I really like this Notre Dame team. I think they're good. Like Kyron Williams has really impressed me in the games that I've watched. Ian Book is a solid quarterback, and their defense is no joke. Sure, the last 2 games they've allowed a bunch of points, but up until that, they were only allowing like 10 points a game. Right. I know the competition there wasn't as high, facing some of the lower ACC teams, but still. So yeah, I'm gonna go Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Clemson.
All right. Keeping it the way it is. I like it.
Keeping it the way it is. That's if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
There you go.
So let's close this up. I'm going to give you the floor here. Anything you want to plug, anything you want to talk about at all, you have the floor.
Let's do it. So like I said earlier in the show, guys, if you want to watch myself or my whole team, check out the 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. We're live on Facebook, also on YouTube. We're over on Twitch as well. We also have a podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere else you like to your audio experience. We are over there as well. We put out content every single week. We put out about 7 to 10 videos per week, primarily on Mondays, sometimes on Wednesdays. Player profiles, team previews, game previews, legends interviews. We have a lot of former NFL, former college greats come on the show and talk with our former NFL player, Bobby Butler. So we have we have those segments every week. We got one of those coming up later today. So that'll be a really fun watch and listen to. He's bringing his son Bryce on, I believe. So former NFL wide receiver Bryce Butler coming on the show. So I'm looking forward to watching that with all the gang. If you guys want to follow me personally, I'm on Twitter at Logan_Landers. Also on Instagram, the same thing. Facebook, pretty simple. And I don't really have a YouTube channel or anything. I'm just kind of doing all my stuff on Facebook and everything like that. But if you guys want to follow myself or follow the rest of my team, you should do all that. And if you guys ever want to come on my show, if you want me to come on your show, just let me know. I'm open to anything and everybody. So just hit me up and I will respond swiftly.
Absolutely, man. That's how we got connected. You posted in one of the groups and I said, I'd love to come on and talk about football. And I'm glad that we got this going. You're a recurring guest on the Brew Party now, Logan. So we'll have to have you back on in a little bit, in a few months. We'll recap the college football season maybe after everything's over. That sounds pretty good. And then anytime you would like to have me back, I'd love to come back on. Go check out all of Logan's work on 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. Are you also on All Sports, All Plays? Is that, or was that?
That was a former show I was on. That was kind of a reoccurring guest type of deal.
Reoccurring guest. Okay. I saw that, but I wasn't sure whether or not to bring it up. Either way, go check out all of Logan's awesome work. I cannot thank you enough for joining me. Episode 36 of the Brew Party podcast. The video is available now, guys. Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. So on Twitter and Periscope, we are at the Brew Party. On YouTube, at the Brew Party podcast. And then on YouTube, on Facebook at the Brew Party podcast. On YouTube, just search the Brew Party. Logan, thank you so much. The audio for this will be coming out on Wednesday. Check us out there, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're there. We are now on Pandora as well. We are a hashtag Pandora podcast. Only took us 8 months, but we're there. Logan, thanks again for joining me. I can't wait to get this out, have everybody hear it. Thank you all for watching with us live. If you'd like to hear the audio, like I said, it will be out on Wednesday, and various clips will be posted throughout the week promoting this. Make sure you tune in live at 6 p.m. Central Time, guys, for the Brew Party Monday Night Football pregame and at 10:30 p.m. Central Time for the Brew Party Monday Night Football postgame. Pregame, I will be joined by Caitlin Leaner from the Bear Down Girl podcast, and then postgame, I'll be joined by Gabe Flayton, host of the North Pole from Review and Preview Sports. Let's get out of here. This has been episode number 36 of the Brew Party podcast. Like, rate, comment, review, subscribe, share us with a friend. We love to see that. Logan, thank you so much. I'm Andy. We're out.